fell off a truck. I think we got like 12 kilometers of it on a giant spool. And it's a little fine for most flies, so when I need to use it, I usually have to double it over or something. The way people get you to use yarn and whatnot is they tell you to take the yarn like this. Where's the hook? Must have a hook. There's a hook. Get the hook in here. They tell you to take the yarn in here and tie it in on top of it like this, right? And you end up with this great big hunk of stuff on here. It's really hard to, it gets bulky really fast. And I figured there had to be a better way of doing it. One day I came up with a bit of an idea. And I am amused by how many American tires claim to have invented this. And that's fine. I don't care. Charlie Meck, who only just recently passed away, by the way, back in when we had him at the Forum in the 90s, he actually was so enamored with this, he mentioned me in one of his books. So they would have you tie this thing in like this, try to stand this up, and you end up with this huge amount of bulk. So I came up with a way where I can tie in my post. No matter how thick I make this, I can tie in my post with 3 turns of thread. I'm going to double and redouble this. I got 6 strands here.
So that's Antron, is it?
Antron, polypropylene,
Yep.
Fentex. Basically all the same thing.
Yep.
Okay? So I got a great big thick heavy hunk of it here. I'm going to put it right in the middle. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. My post is in. Doesn't look like a post, does it? Not at all. So how do we turn it into a post? We stand it up, and we take our thread, and we go around the base like this. And as you do, you're climbing. And as you climb, you're putting in the very same lash-in point, tie-in point, and wrapping point that I just did with the snowshoe rabbit, exactly the same way, until it's nice and visible and you can see it there. I'll get my hands out of the way here in a second, you'll be able to see it. There it is. Notice the bulk below the hook. See? And then when you are finished with it, and you finish tying it off, you take your scissors. You can do anything you want with it. Now, I've been known to try and make it triangular shape and whatnot, but you just take it and just trim it off. And voila, there you have a nice, strong post. You'll be able to wrap your thread around that, your hackle around that without any difficulty at all. And you'll be able to see it. Because you can use any color you wish. You can get shocking pink or fluorescent orange. And again, fish don't really seem to mind. They seem to eat it anyway. Using this technique, you can tie as big a post as you want. I actually have tied posts for this on size 24 hooks. Right. Just to say that I've done it. It's absolute, automatic, instantaneous headache. Your eyes are aching by the time you're done. Your hands are shaking because you're using 14-aught thread, and every time you touch the hook point, it breaks. But you do it just to say you've done it. What the heck? What do you think of that?
Nice.
Isn't that something?
Yep.
And again, you can do this any size, really, right down. This is a 10. You can do this on a 20 without any difficulty at all. You just use less of the material.
Can you tell us the situations when you would choose either propylene or rabbit's foot? Do you have a preference?
Do I have a preference? Gee, that's a good question. Do I have a preference as to when I'm going to use rabbit foot or hair or yarn?
Yep.
Okay. I think on the smaller flies, I'm almost always going to use yarn. By smaller flies, I'm talking under a 16. If it's a 12, 10, 12, 14, I would probably, actually, for almost all the rest I would use snowshoe. I rarely use deer hair now for anything, except spinning up a muddler head or something. And I now have like 10 lifetime supply of deer hair, which I'm never going to use, which is, you know, seems appropriate somehow. Anyway, there it is. So yeah, so that's basically, I think, what would determine it. The small flies will certainly be yarn, and the others will be snowshoe. That's like 16 and up. The only exception might be if I know the pattern has to be used at low light. You know, then I would probably use the poly yarn just so I can see it a little easier. Okay? And you can cut that back at an angle. Try and imitate the shape of the wing if you want to, you know? I mean, you can do whatever you want with it. There. I don't know if that makes any difference. Fish probably don't care, but it looks good, right? Okay. All right. Any questions?
I got one, Sheldon.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the thing that makes that post float is the hackle that spins around.
Wraps around it,
Yes.
yes.
Flattens everything. The post doesn't do anything to how well it floats.
That's correct. The post is there to give you a platform for the hackle. Okay? So, can you see the hackle?
Yeah.
It's wrapped around that way. When you do it this way, it is level.
Do you find that in rougher water, like it's in tumbling water, that the hackle doesn't cut it?
Oh, no. This actually, it does two things really, really well. It floats really, really well. It's very difficult to mess up floating one of these. Okay? But the other thing it does really well is it lands correctly every time. You don't end up with these winged ones and whatnot. If you're off by, you know, a fraction of a millimeter and your balance, and balance is key in these things, half the time it lands on its face. Or it tips over, which they call a quiggly cripple. So these, just because of their nature, their aerodynamics, they land softly and the right way up every time, and they're very hard to sink. So they make very good rough water flies. Okay, they're actually quite good that way. The only thing I haven't done is a downwing, caddis wing, but I think you guys can figure that one out, right? Here again, the wing is tied in second. This is the stuff. Who was the fellow who did the Western style of, starts with a T, the Western style of elk hair caddis? Troth, right. So the two, back in the 50s or 60s, there are two camps, if you will, for designing and using caddis flies. Leonard Wright and this guy Troth, right? Troth put the hackle on the body. And that was because out west where he was, there's a lot more broken water and whatnot, and it helped it with flotation. Leonard Wright, on the other hand, put the hackle in front of the wing, which is closer to the way the fly is anyway, and it skitters really nice when you do it. And here in the fall, skittering a caddis on the surface can sometimes mean the difference between catching something and not. So I call it the Eastern versus the Western style. Al Troth, I think it was, right? Eastern versus Western. Al versus Leonard. It doesn't really matter. You can do it any way you wish. The wing anyway is tied in the same way. Deer hair. That is about the only thing. Well, no, I take that back. I don't even tie my caddis with deer hair anymore. I tie it with snowshoe. Almost anywhere where it calls for deer hair or CDC or any of those kinds of things, you can substitute snowshoe.
Do you find the snowshoe is more water repellent than
Oh,
the
yes.
CDC?
Oh, yes. But more importantly, okay, after you've caught a fish on CDC,
The slime.
the next thing you have to do is spend a period of time. It varies from report to report. A period of time, and for me that's too long. Either retying or getting all the moisture out of the CDC for it to work again, because it sinks like a stone in there, that's right. And you've got, see people on the river shaking up this little thing. It looks like cocaine. I think they snort it if they're not catching it. But they find that it's the crystals you get whenever you have electronic equipment in that little envelope. If you save them all up, you can have all the dry shake you want right there. It's just put it in a little tube and away you go. Oh yeah. Why spend the money? Huh? Okay, suppose now you wanted to tie a fly like a shuttlecock. The CDC shuttlecock. Do you know that one? It's an English pattern. The English are all, I'm on a whole lot of fly tying lists. Some of them are really nothing more than poorly disguised advertisements for stockists. Stockists. Okay, whatever. Anyway, imagine there is a fly built on here that looks an awful lot like a caddis nymph. Caddis pupa or larva, whatever you want to call it. Okay? And now you want to use this and you want it to float with this part just under the surface. Okay? What they do is they get a big bunch of CDC and they tie it in with great care and meticulousness. And what we do is we just lash in a bunch of snowshoe.
I don't know whether you get snowshoe rabbits in England anyway.
Scotland and the northern part of Ireland and all of Scandinavia have varying hairs.
Yeah, but they're all tartan.
They're all what?
Tartan.
I've heard them called tarts from time to time, but... So I would tie this in going the wrong way. Put a little thorax or something in there, and then I would pull it all forward over the top of it like this. Okay? And lash it down this way. And then using that same method that I described before, about building up where you might put the hackle, just build this thing up because it'll give you the ability to control its angle, and once you get it where you want it, you can then just put a little bit of head cement on there and it'll be fine.
So that's why you call it a shuttlecock, because it's got that
That's right.
bulbous bit at the bottom.
That shuttlecock being a bird from badminton.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got that look like a bird badminton. At least in the eyes of some Brit it does. Okay, that broke. Nice. Anyway, you get the idea?
Yep.
Now, the beauty of this is it's virtually indestructible. Floats like a cork. And when it doesn't float anymore, you take it like that, you see, and you just go throw back in the water. Do that with CDC. Forget it, right? So that's a really handy thing. Whenever you see, I call it the CDC and elk, right? Snowshoe and elk. Oh geez, there's all kinds of. The only time where you might have some problems is if they're actually wrapping CDC.
Yep.
Okay? And even then, I have been known to put snowshoe rabbit in a dubbing loop and wrap it like hackle too.